thank you very much for inviting me to come and speak. Thank you for coming to listen. My name's Darren Nesbit. A lot of people might think this kind of talk is quite incongruous at a UFO convention. I actually think it's the perfect place for it, and you're the perfect audience for it. I'll tell you why. Two reasons. One is you're seeking truth. You want to know the answers. You want to know what we're doing here, where we're from, how did it come about, what else is out there, what's our purpose. And the second thing is, you know the government are lying. You know they're covering up, you know there's conspiracies around, and you know that NASA are right up there with the liars as well. So I think with an open mind that you're going to be very receptive to the information that I'm going to give you this afternoon. First thing I need to do, if you're ever going to debunk a globe Earth, you need a globe Earth. Have you ever seen The Truman Show? Ever seen it? Brilliant film. Truman's, or Jim Carrey's character Truman, is been brought up in a town all his life. He doesn't know, the whole thing's fake. His mum and his dad and his wife and all his friends, everybody knows they're all actors. And right at the end, there's an interview with the producer, played by Ed Harris, and he's asked, why do you feel that he's never come close to discovering the true nature of his world, of his reality? He's 30 years old before he finds out. And his answer is very telling. We accept the reality of the world with which we are presented. Why would you ever question it? Everybody you know thinks the same thing. Everybody you know believes what you believe. And that's because we all go through the same education system. There's one mainstream science system, there's one mainstream media system, all the same information. Everybody gets it all at once. And we're all taught these things here. There we go. We're all taught, we all see a globe in a classroom. We're all taught this is our solar system. The Big Bang Theory, although even scientists are very ambivalent about that, and obviously the theory of evolution. So if somebody stands up here, it's also reinforced with everything around you as well. The BBC logo, Firefox, AT&T, it's everywhere. Every universal picture that you've ever seen since 1927 has had a spinning globe on it. So if somebody stands up and says, I don't think the world is a globe, I don't think there is outer space, I think something completely different to what everybody's been taught, they're obviously going to seem like a raving lunatic. They're obviously going to say, what are you talking about? It's one of the craziest things you can do nowadays is say, I think the Earth's flat, or I think it's not a globe anyway. And President Obama mentioned it at least 3 times as a derogatory term when he's talking about climate change. We don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society, and that's most people's attitudes towards it. I'm not asking you to believe what I say. When you watch the 6 o'clock news, they look you stare you straight in the eyes and try and hypnotise you. When you're at school, the teacher never says, now, we might be wrong about this, it's only conjecture, it's only where we're up to, it's only a theory, but this is what we think. They never say that. You taught it as fact, you taught it as truth. All I'm going to do today is present you a whole bunch of evidence, a whole bunch of facts and what have you, and it's for you to make your own mind up. Think of yourself as jurors. I'm prosecuting the globe Earth. And what you want to, what do they say in a courtroom? It's reasonable doubt, isn't it? See if we can give you reasonable doubt. And the idea is really to research the things that I do come up with, because I'm not going to spend a lot of time. There's a lot of points to go on with. So, use it as a springboard for your own research, because I might be lying about everything I say. I'm not, but that's for you to decide. Quick video. I'm sure you're very well aware of green screen techniques and what we can do with, obviously, on the screen nowadays. It's just a 1 minute, just to show you what we can do. I won't believe anything I see on a telly screen without corroborating evidence. I won't discount it straight away, but unless there's real world observations with it, unless we can do experiments and observations and measure things and test things, if it's just on a screen, it's not good enough. This is Dr. Stanley Milgram. He did a series of experiments in the 1960s. Whereby he'd get a respondent to answer questions and people to come in. If if the respondent got the questions wrong, this thing here is a shock machine, a shock generator, and it goes from mild shock all the way up to almost near fatal shock. Every time the respondent got a question wrong, the person operating the machine was instructed to give a shock. And it went all the way up. Now, despite, you know, they might you know, say, are you sure this is okay? The man in the white coat would say, please carry on, it's part of the experiment. Please carry on, it's part of the experiment. The guy behind the glass is screaming in pain rather than in agony. In some places, in some parts, he went completely silent. But the respondent was still, the administrator of the shocks was still told to carry on. Now, the really scary thing is, like I say, he did this a few times, and between 40 and 60% of the subjects, now the real subjects weren't the ones answering the questions, the real subjects were the ones administering the shocks. That's who the psychological test was on. And between 40 and 60% of all respondents went all the way to the end. They administered what would be a fatal shock. Obviously, the guy was an actor behind it, he wasn't really in pain, but they acquiesced to authority. Yeah, they gave the responsibility away. And you know, it's well known with the Nuremberg trials as well that, you know, they tried to use that as a defence. I was only following orders. But that you've got to remember that's with what we think, with what our whole worldview is, our minds as well. It can be easily submitted to authority. We automatically submit to authority. We're young children. We get sent to school. We trust our parents. We trust everybody else. They're not lying. But it's easy enough to fool everybody if you own the whole education system and the media system. Now, something else I want to clear up is flat Earth is not or flat v globe debate is not a new phenomenon at all. In fact, it's been the main question of science ever since we were looking at the stars, which is, you know, obviously 1,000 years ago, right the way back to the Chaldeans. Most of the ancient cultures, most of the ancient civilizations had fixed plane views. They certainly had geocentric views, but we're talking about the Sumerians, the Chaldeans, the Hebrews, the Egyptians, the Chinese, all the way all over the world, and they all predate the CIA and the internet. So this is not some kind of new psyop on the internet that's being pulled on everybody. For 1400 years, Claudius Ptolemy's Almagest, or his predictions of the eclipses and all the movements of the heavens, stood, and again he was a geocentrist. So what did they get wrong for 1400 years? How come they were fooled for 1400 years to not realise that they were moving and you know, and the heavens weren't? Tycho Brahe, in the 15th century, 16th century, was the main astronomer, brilliant mathematician. Also held geocentric views. He thought Copernicus's idea of the heliocentrism in the vast universe was ludicrous. He died in mysterious circumstances, shall we say, and a man called Johannes Kepler then became the main astronomer in Europe. He inherited all of Brahe's work, all his calculations, and he was then able to establish Copernicus's work, you know, with his elliptical orbit mathematics. And then in the 19th century and early 20th century, we have people like William Carpenter, David Wardlaw Scott, Samuel Rowbottom, Valieva, also a lot of work, you know, again with proofs saying the Earth is not a globe. If we bring it right up to date, you know, the question is, are they capable of massive lies? Now, these two guys, yeah, and hopefully nobody thinks that they are heroes and they defeated an evil dictator who had weapons of mass destruction. That's, you know, 10, 15 years later, we know that was all fabricated. So, and you know, 500,000 Iraqis died, thousands of British and American vets and you know, soldiers from all over the world. Massive destruction. And these people lied to the world, and they knew they were lying. They knew they were lying because of the dossier. So if they're capable of lying about, you know, mass death and war, are they capable of staging moon landings and other things as well? I don't know, how many people here think that there is definitely something dodgy about NASA's moon landings? Almost everybody. Okay, great. See, I told you you'd be a great audience to give this information to. I note 4 things wrong with this picture straight away. I mean, again, you can spend a long time. There's a lot of great people who've done awesome work dissecting all the photographs from the NASA moon landings, from the 6 alleged landings. I can note 4 things here that will tell you straight away this is not on the moon. It's on a stage set. Number 1 is There was only one light source when they went to the moon, and that's the sun. They didn't take any lighting, they didn't take any extra equipment. You can quite clearly see here, in the astronaut's visor is another astronaut, Buzz Aldrin, and he is lit up fully. You can see the shadow, so the sun is obviously somewhere behind Neil Armstrong here, and you can see in another picture the shadow actually comes out this way. But they're both lit up. He should be virtually dark. Maybe this side of him a little bit of light, but this side should be completely and utterly dark. If there's only one light source and it's behind, how can he be lit up here? Number two, and this is a huge one, look at the horizon line behind him. Now the horizon line should be about 1.5 miles away on the moon. You can see here, you could probably, I mean, look at that rock there. You could walk to that in, I don't know, 30 seconds, a minute. But also, again, look at the horizon line in the visor. The shadow of the Lunar Lander goes virtually to it. So it's a few hundred yards across. This is a sound stage. Number three is Buzz Aldrin supposed to be taking the picture. You can see the Hasselblad camera here, and here's the camera in the middle of his chest, and he's standing on the same level as Neil. But this is quite clearly taken from above as well, because otherwise it would be a very, very different angle. The fourth thing is the Lunar Lander itself. It's very clean. There's no dust on it. Also, for a very heavy space rocket, it didn't make any kind of dents or impression on the moon's surface as it landed. These Hasselblad cameras did not have viewfinders. Everybody's got a phone nowadays or a digital camera, and they've got fantastic viewfinders. We can see exactly what we're looking at. These didn't have them. They were great cameras, but they only had shutter speed and an aperture, and only a couple of settings for each one of those as well. So how they got such great, perfect shots all the time, I have no idea. They were obviously not only great, space pilots, but they're also phenomenal photographers as well. You can see, again, going back to the sun being the only light source, you can see the shadow of the lander going that way, and the shadows here going that way. It's a local light source. If you go out on a sunny day, all the shadows are parallel because they're coming from the sun above. And again, the same thing here. You can see the shadows going that way. You can see the shadow of the astronaut going that way. There's more than one light source here. This is the stage set. Here we played Honey, I Shrunk the Astronaut. And these are all official NASA photographs. You can see the numbers on them, but it seems to be a hell of a lot smaller there. And like I said before, no dust on that, no dust on the gold foil there. You can actually see bits of sellotape or parcel tape here. You're going to feel really safe going into outer space with these guys. Like I said, again, this is a slightly different shot, but you can see the light source is behind him. I don't think it's this spotlight here, but the light source is behind him. You can see the shadow, but again, he's front lit up. This is an honest impression of what it should look like. Yeah, more realistic. The Lunar Lander that we spent, a few days living on the moon in, found these great pictures. Apollo Reality, fantastic site. There's some great photos on it. You can see here these metal cabinets are kind of what they made the Lunar Lander out of. Gold foil. We've got shower curtain rods. I don't know if you've ever had a kitchen fitted, but if these guys came to fit your cupboards like this, you'd want your money back. It got damaged on landing or something. Well, I still want to live there. They haven't done a very good job of it. It's kind of reinforced. I mean, you see pictures like that. It's obviously fake, but you get reinforced with these great graphics, and it's showing you all the equipment on here. But just look at the amount of water that they had. That wouldn't last you a day. One person a day. And that's if you didn't move about, you just sat there and just needed a drink. But they had the big backpacks, to cool them down, or to keep the air temperature around them constant. They required gallons and gallons and gallons of water. Where was it? How did they go to the toilet? Because it's not like they could go outside and open up the spacesuit and take a quick leak and go back or anything. So there's no toilet on here, or a store for the waste. No food, certainly not enough water either. And they had a car for the last 3 missions, And we've seen pictures of it folded up. You know, videos have just come out recently of them unfolding it, except it's a completely different car to the one they actually drive. But again, tyre marks. These can only be made when there's moisture. So how are these made? Because if you know when you get that really dry fine sand, you might get St. Anne's actually in the dunes, but you get the fine sand, if you rode a bike through or rode tyres through it, it wouldn't leave the tyre impression, it'd just leave a groove. So how are the tyre marks being left? Got to think about the temperatures on the moon as well, between 100 centigrade and minus 150 centigrade. But all the equipment worked perfectly, including the car. I don't know if you've ever tried to run a car on a really hot or a really cold day, but it doesn't really work. Again, it's true of the film, all the photographic film that they exposed worked perfectly, no problem at all. And also, all the shots are great. Talking of the shots, they took 5,006 lunar missions. Took 5,771 photos in 4,834 minutes, which is more than 1 minute. It's about 1 minute every 50 seconds. So not only have they got to do all the checks and all the science stuff and everything else, make sure everything's great, and go and collect the moon rocks and build the car and drive about and do all that stuff, every 50 seconds they've got to be taking a photograph as well. And the photograph's got to be perfect as well. I mean, how they've created this picture perfect. Now there's another great big problem with this here as well. Again, the light source is coming from the right. We can see by the shadows coming off here to the left. Yeah, light source is coming from the right. How is the astronaut lit up? How is he lit up from this side? Again, this is a picture-perfect postcard. When you saw it on the telly screen in 1969, this is what we saw. Because there was no direct feed for the TV companies. They had to actually, it was on a screen like this at Houston, and they had to point their cameras at the screen and record that, and that was what was transmitted. Tell you what's funny is, for a long time people were doing freedom of information requests to try and get hold of the original reels. In 2009, they finally admitted we've lost them all. This is man's biggest achievement. It's man's most amazing tech achievement. Makes them think, we are, amazing. We can do anything. But you've lost all the telemetry and all the original tapes. What does that mean? It means you can't digitally remaster it and see what a fake it was. They actually built, they built a few of them, but they built a big fake moon. You can see the artists working on it here. Yeah, and there's a track for a camera, a dolly camera there, and obviously here as well. Why did they do that? I mean, they say, I know we had to rehearse. They had to rehearse this, that. But why would you need what's that for? Why is there a great big plaster of Paris moon there? This is one of my favourites. This is the creme de la creme. This is early 1970s special effects. And people go, oh, that's not the original. Phil, that's from NASA. This is the big crane that they use. I'm going to show you a video now. See the lander on the crane there. And again, they said, well, we built it for rehearsal, so we'd know what the lander would do on the moon. Let's just show a quick video. Oh. Whee! There we go. That's a space rocket taking off from the moon. They panned it up this time. We panned it up. Okay, I can't pan it up anymore. Can you imagine that? Such a crane lifting it up. And slowed it right down. You can see all the multicoloured explosions now. Now, this is official NASA, this is official NASA video. They will maintain that this is, a real lander taking off from the moon. And they've done a what do you call it, coordinated shot here. So here's the lander's going everywhere, but on this side, it's just nice and smoothly taking off. In a second, he realises the cameraman is it's gone somewhere, obviously, they've switched it off, so he pans back down again. Now, I'm assuming that they're going to say that this is all controlled from Houston, 240,000 miles away. And go in the next one. How's the mobile signal in here, by the way? A bit dodgy, isn't it? But they managed to get radio waves all the way to the moon, and I can even control a camera from all that way away. Here's John Glenn, looking very handsome. He's going to be safe in space because he's got a motorcycle helmet and a little silver foil suit. He's very fashionable. I'd like to walk down the streets of Manchester wearing that one day, as long as nobody thinks I'm going to make it in space with solar winds and radiation and all the other things that are going to just fry you. You ever seen the computing power that took them to the moon? It's not quite as good as a Speak and Spell. It has 32K of storage, 4K of processing power. They've got to, they had to. Obviously, the command module is orbiting the moon while the guys are, driving the buggy about and everything else. And this takes off, and it's got to obviously rendezvous with it and dock with it perfectly. So you can imagine the amount of processing power and the calculations that they needed to do. And seriously, you're telling me it was done on a wristwatch, basically. Don't believe it. People say, well, hang on a minute, they left mirrors on the moon so we can bounce lasers off and we can see that the moon's moving slightly closer each year. But again, when you research it for yourself, 1962, two separate universities, both the Americans and the Russians, both bounced lasers on the moon without any mirror. If you fire a laser from Earth to the moon, the size of the hit on the moon is about a mile wide. When it comes back, it's even further dispersed. But again, we didn't need to go to the moon to be able to bounce a laser off it. They were given moon rocks. Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong sent moon rocks to virtually every government. And you kind of think, well, hang on a minute, if this is all a big conspiracy and it's all a lie, is everybody in it? Well, no. The governments completely believed, and they took it on faith as well, that they'd been to the moon and here's some moon rocks. But again, the curator of the Dutch moon rocks had them tested. Turns out they're petrified wood. £308,000 valued for a bit of wood. Oh, how we laughed about it. Oh, there's some mix-up somewhere. Yeah, a rock got mixed up with a bit of wood. Nah, don't think so. If you watch a film called Astronauts Gone Wild, great journalist Bart Sibrel, who absolutely doesn't believe that we landed on the moon, but also doesn't believe in a flat Earth, he's an absolute a genuine source. But he got all the astronauts, he went round to all the astronauts and he tried to get them to swear on the Bible that they walked on the moon. A few of them did, but they were very angry about it, they were very, deflective about it. And Buzz Aldrin, Freemason Buzz Aldrin, he actually punched him. Now, if you walked on the moon, he wasn't rude, and he wasn't, obviously he was persistent, but he wasn't rude or anything else, but he just got angry and punched him. That's not the act of the second man on the moon. The Orion project, NASA's Orion project. You can see here Kelly Smith has a great video on YouTube, and he basically says we need to figure out how to get man past the Van Allen belts. But I thought they already did that 1969 to 1972. So they haven't figured out how to get past the Van Allen belts. That is why we've never been back to the moon, not that we went in the first place. But that's why everything's always low Earth orbit. We're not doing any manned space exploration. Great to hear that both SpaceX and NASA with the Orion, in I think it's 2018 or 19, the next couple of years, they're going to send some more manned missions around the moon. But great to see the CGI on that. And here's something just the moon in general. Away from NASA for a second. We've got the craters on the moon, and they're all round. Yeah. They're all round, there's no impact trails, yeah? Because they tell us it's meteors and asteroids have created these over thousands and millions of years. But number one, there's no impact trails, so they almost hit at 90 degrees, straight on at 90 degrees. The other problem is we always have the same side of the moon facing us, so did they all come from Earth? Something else to ponder as well. Moving more up to date with the ISS. People have seen the ISS, we see pictures of the ISS, we see them inside the ISS, but how they fool everybody is with lots of hairspray and zero-G planes. I'll show you a video of the zero-G plane, also known as the Vomit Comet. And again, when you go back and watch the ISS after this, have a look for yourself and see, is it a plane going and doing this, doing the thing? And you get about 28 seconds. And you can see for yourself, they call it microgravity, or reduced gravity. And you can see for yourself that this is how they simulate it on the telly screen for everybody. Stuck up the hair, because hair would just be flowing about in proper zero gravity. It wouldn't be stuck up like that. But here you can see, they also have it's not just a plane, they have gravity wells at one of the research centres. I'm trying to remember the name of it. But, you know, this is quite typical of an ISS shot, where they're doing that. Oh. And NASA themselves admit they use a variety of facilities to create microgravity conditions. Okay. We can also see harnesses. They've airbrushed the harnesses out, but you can still see the effects on the shirt. There's something else I noticed as I was doing intense research for this talk, is that, you know what, all astronauts, all these guys, they're all military. Think about Buzz Aldrin, or you know, just watch any of the interviews, just watch any of them. They're all military people, so they're not completely, you know, they're not stupid or anything. They can certainly follow orders and they know how to keep secrets. But none of them are real scientists. I never, you know, especially on the ISS. I mean, Tim Peake is obviously, you know, one that we're familiar with. He's a nice guy, he's a great guy, and all the rest of it. And it's, you know, the rugby and this, that, and the other, and this is how we take a drink and everything. But these guys are not top scientists. If they're doing stuff in space and we're spending billions of dollars on it, I want to know that the top physicists and the top chemists and the top scientists in their field are up there, you know, hopefully advancing mankind and our knowledge. Lovely bit here with a bit of duct tape. It's what you want on the ISS again. It's just a joke. If you know, this is what I'd expect to see. This is professional. Yeah, this stuff is just wires hanging down, laptops and cameras everywhere. It's a joke, and you never actually see them do any science. They know, oh, we're in the middle of you know, this experiment. We're finding out how, you know, whatever it is. What they do is they brush the hair and the teeth. This is how we brush our teeth. It's like, you know, speaking to children. This is how we go to the toilet. And NASA have finally figured out how people go to the toilet in space. They had a competition, you know, for people to suggest things. You know, I really want them to have figured that out before we sent anybody up there. Have you ever seen footage of them putting the ISS together? Have you ever seen an astronaut take a 360-degree panorama and get a little window? So, oh look, there's the Earth down there. I want get your iPhone out and show us space. They never do, ever, ever, ever. That should make you very suspicious. And people say, well, I can see the ISS, you know, you can time it. It goes over my house. I can see it with my telescope, etc., etc. This is the best shot I could find of the ISS. It looks like a hologram to me. Well, I don't pretend to know all the technologies and everything that they use to deceive people with, but I can quite clearly see that this is not any kind of solid object. A few years ago, Italian astronaut Luca Parmitano nearly drowned. Again, you can look this up. I don't know. I mean, you know, we've now got to have snorkels in space because water got into his helmet. Where's the water from? I thought outer space was a vacuum. There's no particles, there's no dust, there's no water in it, but this was all over the news. Well, if you look on the right here, in the Chinese spacewalk, because again, I know people say, well, hang on a minute, if the Americans were faking it, the Russians would have said something, or the Chinese, but they're not in competition. They're all part of the same. They're all part of the same con. You see here, there's a bubble rising. There you go. You see it? Quite fast, but you can see, again, he's supposed to be on a spacewalk. This is a bubble. The one on the left, there's just, you know, a zillion bubbles. And just watch this little bit here. There he goes. Kicks his legs. See that? Just watch him again. Little kick of the legs. Look at his movement. What does that look like to you? He's underwater. That's how they film spacewalks. Otherwise, you won't get bubbles. And say it's not the only way they do it. It's not the only way they fool people. They have a variety of different techniques. The head of the Russian ISS team, sea plankton on the outside of the station. We found traces of sea plankton and microscopic particles on the illuminated surface. This should be studied further. Chief of the Russian ISS orbital mission, Vladimir Solyova, said. And in Moscow, there was a cosmonaut training facility. Again, quite easy to imitate a space station of some kind here. Remember Gemini 4? I think Ed White, first ever spacewalk in 1965. You just watch him here. What I'm going to do, just watch the Earth behind him. It's rotating slowly there. So I'm going to speed it up. Right, and just watch the rotation. So you can imagine that he's on a spaceship and it's orbiting around the Earth. So I just sped it up and here it goes round. It's orbiting round here. Just watch the Earth and the spaceship. You won't notice unless you speed it up. Look at this. Where's he going? Where's he going? Lost in space. Or rather a stop motion. Two things wrong with these. First of all, when it's night time, it's not pitch black, ever. Yeah, there's always street lights. We can see, even if there's no street lights, it's not pitch black. You can see things. We can see, we can make out shadows. We can make out, it just doesn't go pitch black. But that's how they'd have us believe that the Earth looks like. It's completely pitch black with the two lights. Now you might say, okay, well it's exposure and the photograph and all the rest of it. Okay, well fair enough. But here's the Earthrise from Apollo 11, and then the Earthrise from Apollo 14. If you look very closely, you can see it's actually exactly the same Earth they've used, with exactly the same cloud formation, slightly different contrast and colour. They're not real, obviously. Not only is this pasted in, as you can tell by changing the levels on Photoshop, they've actually, we kind of help them. We kind of help them lie better. As we uncover all their anomalies and everything that's wrong, they go back and they change it up. So this is the new version. If you go to NASA and download the picture now and change the levels, it'll look like that. I don't know where the stars have come from. All of a sudden we can now see stars in space as well. They've added some stars. Very strange. If you're still unsure about the moon landings, if you still think, well, it may or may not be, watch Bart Sibrel's A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. It will actually show you Neil Armstrong and the other two guys. It'll actually show you them faking being halfway to the moon. It shows you them doing it. It was a reel that they shouldn't have had. But the question is, if we haven't gone to the moon, or even halfway to the moon, if we only ever go this high, then where are all these pictures? Where are all these images? How do they create these images? Because they're not photographs. And they do admit most of the time that they're not photographs. It's not just take a picture. I'd like to see that. I really would like to see that, but you don't. 2015, the Epic camera on the Discover satellite. This is supposed to be 1 million miles away from Earth. You might have seen it before. It's 5 hours of time-lapse photography, obviously showing the dark side of the moon going past the Earth. Now, I say going past the Earth because it's supposed to be orbiting, isn't it? Isn't the moon supposed to be going round the Earth? That's not going round the Earth. It's just gone past. It doesn't change size, it doesn't change lighting, nothing changes on it. It's just a CGI graphic, computer generated. You notice the cloud patterns over 5 hours do not change. They don't change. But they officially say, yeah, no, this is a shot of the Earth. Now, unless you question it, like I say, unless you do this kind of work, unless you are open to questioning it, then you'll never know, you'll just accept it. But as soon as you start looking with a real, with a real bit of cynicism on it, these things start becoming very, very noticeable the more you do it. Here's a still shot from the same satellite, same era. If you look here to California, there's a cloud formation here, we turn upside down. You can see a word written. It says sex, doesn't it? Does it say sex or fex? FSFX? The way we know it says sex is because they use exactly the same thing in The Lion King. If you've ever seen The Lion King, Disney, blows it out and it forms that word. It's just very subtle programming, but it's the same thing. That's how you know it's fake. And we know it's fake because NASA tells us it's fake. Robert Simon is a NASA data visualizer. That's artist to you and me. And there's an interview with him saying, yeah, it's Photoshop, but it has to be. Now, they make out it's composites. They make out it's, well, we took a photograph and then another photograph and another photograph. And, I mean, I don't know why, just take a bloody photograph. But if it's a composite, then why the clone tool? Everywhere. Why have they cloned the clouds? It's just artist impressions, isn't it? They actually have artists for these things. Image by Rita Stockley did the land surface, shallow water and the clouds, and the enhancements were by our friend Robert Simon, who did the ocean colour, compositing, 3D globes and animation. I just want a photograph. Show me a photograph of the Earth. Because all they do is they just change, they change everything actually each time. I want to know what the real Earth looks like if it's supposed to be a ball Earth. Just take us a photograph. This one here has got topographical information on it. This one's a bit flatter. Here America's grown to twice its size. Must be all the cheeseburgers they're eating. The other thing is, you know, water should be, I mean, the whole planet should be different. The whole of Earth should be different all over the place. It's a uniform colour. Well, you know, it's kind of blue and what have you in the South Seas and the Bahamas. But when you come up north, you know, it's a bit more polluted, a bit browner. But we don't get that. I don't trust any of these pictures. They openly admit, like I say, they're composites. But I don't think any of these are the real Earth. And then in December 2016, we're going backwards now. Now we're not showing any detail at all. This is another supposedly NASA in the moon. You know, you can create that in 5 minutes in Photoshop. No problem at all. They can take pictures of galaxies trillions and trillions of light years away, but what they can't do is turn it round and point it at the Earth and zoom right in and show us live people in Australia walking upside down. I'd like to see a live feed of the real Earth turning slowly in space. That is clearly not CGI. It's probably the most important thing you can do if you're, well, yeah, maybe, I don't know. See if you can find a video. A real video of just the Earth. It only used to be for a few minutes, just need to see a little turn, but it's one you can tell. If somebody shows you a video that they've taken of the children running about and the dog playing in the park, you can tell it's real and it's not been doctored. We can tell what a real video looks like. So you'd be able to tell the difference, no problem at all. But that's the money shot. Yeah? We're here in Britain and we're well, I suppose we'd be walking sideways. The only people that'd be walking upright would be the people at the North Pole. Yeah? But if they've got super satellites that can see, you know, virtually to the end of time, virtually to the edge of the universe, then sure they could just turn them around and show us somebody in New Zealand walking upside down at the same time as somebody in, you know, Canada walking the other way. That'd be an interesting thing to see. We'll never will, though. You think, well, there's loads and loads of satellites out there, and there's loads of Earth webcams, isn't there? So I took this one, the Tate in Space, and somebody was like, oh, it's an art installation. No, it's not. They say we've got a satellite, and it orbits the Earth every 93 minutes, and it takes photos. So I decided to test it. And you can see the time and date in the corner here. But look at the image of Earth, and you get this kind of you get the old TV snow in between every few seconds. Yeah, so half an hour later, same shot. Another half an hour, exactly the same shot. Now an hour later, it's not moved at all. It's supposed to be going pole to pole, by the way. It's supposed to be going this way around. So I thought, another hour later, still not changed. I thought, hang on a minute, am I going wrong here? So there's some controls. Oh, right, okay, so you can, you know. So I zoomed in, it's just the same shot, zoomed in, and what is that? It's just a plasticine model. I mean, it really is an artwork, but it's supposed to be the real Earth. If you go onto the website, it will tell you it's a real Earth. The next day, they just blurred it a bit. And then the next day after that, we were back to, it's the same shot again and again. But the thing is, who's going to sit there and go, I'm just going to see what it does. You just assume, yeah, oh, we've got a satellite to this. Oh, yeah, okay, great, and move on. You're not going to test it unless you're cynical. I took another one a few days ago, so it's about, what, 6 weeks after? 26th of January, 1st of March, same shot again. It's not a real satellite in space. It's not the Earth. It's not just Earth that they have CGI and artwork with. This is Jupiter from 2014. Again, it's an official NASA shot. And in my last talk a year ago, I did point out that it's artwork. I mean, don't get me wrong, Jupiter's up there. Yeah, although it's probably a lot closer. I've not seen a red spot on a real, on a real telescope on an amateur shot. But in 2016, in summer 2016, they did the same thing again. It's exactly the same art, and all they've done is change the contrast and the colour a bit and put the stupid aurora on the top. And they say these are official shots, and you don't spend too much time. And it's put them together, and you go, yeah, fake. Here's the Hubble out in space. It's not. This is the Hubble. It's a plane they have, a 747 called Sophia, with infrared cameras on it. And you can tell, because a gentleman called Robert Bassano rang up some of the engineers who work on Sophia, and basically they said, yeah, we never serviced the Hubble, and also all the shots seem to be taken at the same time. But again, you can research that for yourself. There are no real shots of real satellites in space. You go to Google or anywhere and try and find a photo of a real satellite, out there in space. Can't find one. They are all computer generated. Why? Why? If they've got all these cameras on them and all the satellites, why not take pictures of each other? Prove to us. Shut us up. This is what we get. We get nice graphics in magazines and newspapers and on websites showing us, where it's going to go and all the gold foil again. On the way to Pluto. And then it sends shots back like that, so it must be in space. But as soon as this came out again, a lot of people went, this is a joke, isn't it? Seriously, there you go, Pluto. But again, unless you kind of question it, you just accept it. Put it to Photoshop, adjust the levels, you can quite clearly see this is not the New Horizons probe, just passing by and taking a photograph. It's been layered in. Yeah, it's a creation. And this is the other half of it. So you've got the graphics and the CGI. You go, hang on a minute, well, we see rockets go up, don't we? Well, we see them go up, but very quickly they start levelling off and coming down again. And what we never ever see, and I did a huge search for it, we never see an unedited shot. I mean, there was 135 space shuttle missions, so somebody could have put a camera out the front window and, let it roll. Let's see what it looks like. It's not going to take long. It's going to take 15, 20 minutes. Never see it. In fact, there is a cockpit, there is one cockpit video, and it's pointed backwards towards the crew. Who wants to see that? I don't care, show space. I want to see space. They all go on the side. I'll show you a few minutes of rocket launches now. From all different countries, all over the world. And we'll see it, shoot up. And we know amateur scientists can get rockets to go. You think, oh, those crazy Koreans, they'll believe anything. There we go, it's still going up. Oh, it's coming down again. It's not going into space, that, is it? Yeah, it's definitely coming down now. Hey, we did it. That's what we get, graphics, CGI, command centre. Wonderful. Can't believe it, the generals. We've finally done it. We finally put a rocket 100 metres up in the air and come down with it. There we go. This is the Orion. This is NASA's Orion. Delta IV. The Americans wouldn't do that. The Americans are, they're not liars, are they? Surely they're not lying to us. And again, any minute now. Up, up and away. No, it's coming back down. It's definitely coming down. It's coming down. I want to see a rocket go right the way into space. And I know, obviously, if you've got a camera on the ground, you only see it go so far. Cameras are obviously run out of light energy, but stick a camera on the thing. We've got all this technology. Show us. That's what they've got to show us. We have to cut to computer-generated images. Why? Yeah, we've definitely done it then. Brave. It's impressions. It's impressions on the mind. Yeah? Because after that, they've got to show us graphics and say we're up there. Again, levelling off. And it's a downward trajectory. There you go, the booster rockets. Oh, it's definitely come back down. Right, okay, we're off to the moon. We're going to the moon now. Here we go. Up, up, up. Up. So infinity and beyond. So 1 minute 40. Not got very far, has it? And I know, I know the apologists or the flat Earth deniers say, well, it's only got to go so, and then it's going to catch the orbit of the Earth. It's not gone very far. It's only gone up a few miles. It's not even gone as high as a plane. Some of these. I mean, you know, they're never on the moon. What? Apollo 16 the same. Like I say, the best thing to do is have a look for yourself. There are, plenty of rocket launchers around. You can test all this for yourself. Don't believe what I say. You know what I mean? I might have just picked the ones that seem to go down or something, but you'll find that they all do the same, and there are no unedited videos that show us going all the way into space. First shuttle launch. Going up. Here we go. Oh, it's on the side, huh? It's on his back. Levelling off. There go the rockets. So that's its maximum velocity. We can still see it, so it can't be that far, can it? Here's a picture of the smoke. I think I've made my point. The point was, it's all different, all the different countries. This is the European one. Right at the end, I've got the Russian Soyuz. So they all do it. They all cut to this CGI. The command centre, that's all we get. I wish you could say, it's just the way it is. We're back on now? Wonderful. Okay. That's enough of that. Yep. Okay. So we'll come back to our favourite genre of movies. I was a huge Star Wars fan. I loved them all. Star Wars, Star Trek, you name it. The point is that these are there to fill in the gaps in our mind, because we've never seen from NASA or any other space agency around the world what it actually looks like to go into space, what it feels like to go into space. But we have a whole, all our generation were brought up with it, right the way through. And this is how they fill in the gaps. Again, it's a subtle programming trick, I suppose. They'll show us the rockets going up, and they'll tell us, yeah, this is doing this. And in the meantime, they're not trying to say that the sci-fi is real, but in our minds, we kind of put the two together. So it's an impression again. And you've got to ask yourself as well, hang on a minute, if NASA don't go into space, if they really do fake it, they launch a rocket up, it goes into, what you're seeing, here's some graphics, or here's us on the moon set, or what have you. Why did they have to fake it? They get $19 billion a year at the moment. So why not spend that money and actually go into space? Is it because they can't? I'm going to come back down to Earth now. We need to know what we can see for ourselves. What can we observe? What can we establish that is definitely true? Because we look up and we can see the stars and the dark rift in the sky and all the rest of it. So what do we actually know for sure? Well, if we're on a globe, there has to be curvature. We should be able to, at some height, at some distance, we should be able to experience curvature. Things should drop out of view. Yeah. I can't hear you from back there.
I said you can see the curvature of the Earth from Land's End.
Right, okay. Okay, two things to notice about this particular photograph which you might not have straight away. First of all, there's a city there in the distance, and also, just note for later, the reflection of the sun on the water. One of the big arguments for a ball Earth is that ships disappear over the horizon, hull first. Everything disappears, bottom first, but on the horizon. Ships are, you know, for a 6 foot tall person, the horizon is only 3 miles away. Okay, if you're 7 foot, you're standing up, obviously it's going to be a little bit further, 4, 5, 6 miles, however far you want to say. These ships are disappearing. It's one of Aristotle's biggest proofs. And people still say it nowadays. But there's a big problem with it. Because if we're on a ball and there's a curve that way and the ships are disappearing that way, then we should see a curve that way as well. And not just across the z-axis, but across the x-axis as well. Yeah? If you're telling me that the ships are disappearing the horizon and we can't see the bottoms of buildings and mountains in the distance because of the curve of the Earth, then I want to see the curve of the Earth that way as well. Because it should be even, shouldn't it? We should see it both ways. If you go in that way and it's disappearing, then you should be able to see curve that way. And obviously you can't, because every single thing we see is flat. Every single horizon we see is flat. Just notice the sun and the reflection of the sun on the water there. I'm going to miss that video out. Okay. I maintain that we see things disappear in the distance because of the limits of our eyesight, because of the way perception and light refracts over water, and so on and so forth. It's not useful for us to be able to see 1,000 miles. Probably be quite dangerous, to be honest. But the point is that I don't think these windmills, these turbines are disappearing, you know, over the curve. I think they're all, you know, exactly level, but because of the way light works. I've got the video. Show you this very quickly. And watch this. As the temperature changes, the conditions change, watch it appear and disappear. It'll mirage, it'll do all kinds of different things to our perception of it. That's obviously a speeded up time lapse. But is it disappearing behind a curve? It's not, is it? It's the way the light, you know, is obviously hitting the lens. You know, it can make it appear massively different. From almost nothing, from a tiny thin wedge to, you know, and obviously we've seen there's full buildings on there. So the way our eyes work has got a lot to do with how things disappear in the distance, and it makes sense for us, you know, like I say, to be very aware of the things close to us, and, you know, things 200 miles away are not really that important. In the Flat Earth community, we use it's supposed to be 3,959 miles radius, this Earth. So, as a shorthand, we do 8 inches per mile squared of dip. How much should things dip around? But the problem with that is, it's only taking it from this point here, as if we're on, you know, 0 feet above sea level. So all we're measuring there, it's a good, you know, rule of thumb. All we're measuring there is the distance from there to there, and the height things have to be able to see over the alleged curve. What we actually want to measure is this, from here. So you've got a height, and then the horizon, and then over the horizon how tall buildings, ships, lighthouses, etc. should be. It's a double Pythagorean equation, and this is the one that the debunkers use. Yeah, because we say, oh, we can see, well, I'm going to show you things 30, 50, 60, 100 miles in the distance. And they say, well, yeah, we should be able to see them even with a curve and light refracting and everything else. So I'm going to use theirs and still show you that things don't disappear behind the curve like they should. Very famous White Cliffs of Dover, we're 22 miles away. You can see we're on the beach here. So we say we're 10 feet above sea level. 220 feet of the 350 feet of these cliffs should be obscured, and we can see them. Obviously, you can't see them all the time. You can only see them on good atmospheric days. So sometimes they can be seen, sometimes they can't. It's not because they disappeared behind the curve of the Earth. Toronto, from Niagara on the Lake, again, we can see virtually the whole skyline. It's a great day, great clear day here. We can see virtually the whole skyline. From Grimsby Beach, 34 miles away, again, you can see he's on the water, yeah, and we can see the base, the whole city. From the other way around, we can see Niagara Falls from Toronto. Niagara Falls, the highest fall is 188 feet above sea level. Again, on the curve calculator, the Earth calculator, there should be 551 feet should be hidden behind the curve, and we can quite clearly see a lot of the falls there. Going on, this is one of the most famous shots when it comes to flat Earth theory or flat Earth v globe Earth debate. Chicago from 54 miles away. And again, we shouldn't really be able to see it. They say that yes, we should, and that's why the bottom of the buildings are missing. The bottom of the buildings have disappeared behind the curve of the Earth. But I'll just show you the lensing video, the atmospheric lensing video, and show you exactly why we can't see the whole city. I mean, we know that we can't see huge distances, huge distances. On the calculator, it says, basically, they say there's a bulge of 486 feet in between us and Chicago here. So there's a bulge, which is the curve of the Earth, and that's why we can't see the bottom. But I have a great big problem with it, and this is going to apply to every single thing when we're talking about distances and when we can see, whether we can see, over the curve of the Earth. If there's a curve of the Earth, and, it's great to go on debunking sites and people that disagree with you because you can... obviously get ideas for how they are wrong. Excuse me. So here's us. This is Joshua Nowicki took the picture from Grandmere State Park, and this is Chicago, and they reckon there's a 486 feet bulge in between here. Well, that means that you should be able to stand here or here and look up the lake and see a big 486 feet bulge of water. Yeah, and that's true of all of them. That's true of whatever we look at. They say, well, we can't see because there's a bulge of water, but obviously if you go round, then you should be able to see the bulge of water. There is no bulge of water anywhere. This is what we see every time you look out, a flat horizon. If I saw a bulge, you'd go, oh yeah, okay, it's curving. But it's not. Never is. All horizons are flat everywhere. There's no bulge water. If you've ever been to a lake, it's flat. It goes on flat. You can see the Isle of Man from the Fylde coast, 61 miles away. Again, you ever seen the Irish Sea with a big bulge in it? The Isle of Capri from 102 miles away. I mean, I've put all the the viewer's height and everything so you can calculate for yourself. I'm not going to get right into it because the bottom line is we can see these islands from a long way away, and you're telling me there's supposed to be a bulge of water in between, or at least this horizon is completely flat. Barcelona, 115 miles away, we can see Magaluf, or no, it's not Magaluf, Mallorca, all the peaks of Mallorca. These should be hidden. This one had a lot of debate on the internet. If we say the photographer said he was at 2,717 feet above sea level. But from 149 miles away, which is where we are, this is Reunion Island from Mauritius, you can see 4,836 feet of this should be hidden behind the curve of the Earth. But if Simon Def there is only 4,139 feet. So the horizon line should be here somewhere, if it was behind the curve. It's not. We can see the island. Show you this. Again, proving that it's not because of the curve of the Earth that we can't see very far in the distance. You see the sun setting there, nice flat horizon. What's going to happen very shortly is we're going to see this peak come into view. It's not come into view because you've gone higher or anything. It's come in because of obviously the way the light's working. Let me show you. As it sets, you see the peak. It's 185 miles away. We're looking across from the south of France over to the Pyrenees here. And again, comes into view. If the sun wasn't there, obviously a few days of the year when the sun sets at that position, you can see it. But if it wasn't there, you wouldn't be able to see anything. Not because of the curve of the Earth, it's because of the way light and our eyes work. And here's the long-distance photography world record. It's basically 273 miles. I'll show you the photo now. I just want you to take note of this hidden target height. This is what should be, it should be hidden behind the horizon. Something needs to be 4,900 meters high It's 5 kilometres, isn't it? Virtually 5 kilometres high, 4,900 metres high, if we're to be able to see it. But we can see here, the Bardes Écrans is 4,100 metres high, and this is it here. Yeah, it's quite a chunk of it. It's not just a little tip, it's quite a chunk of it we can see. The horizon line should be 800 metres above that. And again, this guy was just, taking the world record long distance photography. Not trying to prove that the Earth's flat or anything. In fact, if you go into the discussions and say, yeah, but refraction and all the rest of it, it means we can see behind a curve. We can see behind corners all of a sudden. 273 miles. It's a long way. There's a lake in Russia which is 395 miles long. It freezes over every winter, months of the year. Should be 19.7 miles of hump or curve. Again, ice doesn't curve and hump and bump, it's flat. It does, we all know ice freezes and it freezes flat, just the same as water. When it's wet, when it's liquid, it's flat. A lot of people will maintain, I've seen the curve from an airplane. Airplanes fly at 37,000 feet, around 7 miles up. So if you've seen the curve from 7 miles up, how did this V2 rocket in 1946 not see the curve from 65 miles up? Not there. Purple line there showing where the curve should be. It's just a flat horizon. You might ask, well, why don't you send up a balloon? Let's have a look for ourselves. Forget NASA, forget the telescreen, forget all these liars in government. Let's do it for ourselves. People all over the world have. You'll never guess what I'm going to show you now. From anywhere between 85 and 120,000 feet these are going to be. Look at the horizons. Our planet is beautiful. It's not really a planet, it's terra firma. But the Earth is beautiful, it's a great big plane. It hasn't changed, we still live in the same place, but from above you can see there's no curve. Now you might go, oh, hang on a minute, I can just make out a curve. I'll show you the shots in a minute where there's a real curve. Big, beautiful place, but it's just a big plain. Yeah? It's just a big, I won't say flat because it's got mountains and rivers and valleys and all the rest of it. So I like calling it a fixed plane. Again, there's no movement. Okay, so I think this is still shots probably why there's no movement. But again, when you see the videos of the balloons themselves, you'll see that not only is the horizon flat all the way up there, we're talking 20 miles up for these, it doesn't move. There's no, again, visible movement of the Earth underneath. I think that's the world record for an amateur balloon. You can see the clouds, very, very small in the distance. So you might go, well, I could kind of see a curve there, kind of make myself see a curve. But not quite like that, which is what the shots show us all the time. This great big curve. There's no, obviously, landmass here or anything so we can make things out. Again, how high up is it? How up is the shot? You've just seen from 112,000 feet, 22 miles, we've seen the clouds looking very, very small. This looks lower to me, but it's got a great big curve on the horizon. The other question is, who took this shot? Is something following the ISS at perfect orbit to it at 17,500 miles an hour so it can take a shot and it's all perfect, an inch, no blurry, no blurriness. This is when we experience a curve of the Earth, when they use barrel lens distortion to make the Earth seem curved. Remember Felix Baumgarten's jump, famous jump in 2012? Great big media event. We can see the curve there, but if that's the curve of the Earth, then it's not very big. Doesn't make sense. Here's a shot from the video. Here's a still from the video, by the way. He's about to jump out. So they don't get everything right. They don't fake everything brilliantly. And it's only for a split second. Again, go at the video yourself, have a look for yourself. It's 127,000 feet, and it's a complete. But how we get from that to this curve, I've no idea. I do know, it's barrel lens distortion, and they're trying to deceive everybody. 33 kilometres up, flat horizon. The other great thing about this particular weather balloon is this here. Now these are clouds, this is not the sea. Yeah, these are clouds here. You can see there's a sunspot. There's a reflection of the sun, but a particular heat spot just concentrated there on the clouds. When you see the video itself, which I haven't got today, you'll see the sun. You see it bounce up and down the sun and the sunspot and the hot spot underneath it. Which again, if the sun's 93 million miles away and huge and it's sending all its rays parallel into the Earth, what's it doing with a localized hotspot? Doesn't make sense. This is what we see. We see it on water as well. Just to note before, what you see is what looks like a local sun emitting a local reflection. Because again, I know the idea is, you know, the light rays come in and they're spread out, obviously they're spread out more north as they are, you know, towards the equator. But surely we shouldn't get such localized, I mean, this is a few meters. Why isn't the whole sea lit up? It should be. If we're getting all the rays, you know. Here we are, you know, if you're in Britain, on the south coast or what have you, and you look, you'd see that reflection. That's the reflection we see all over the world. It should also be different all over the world as well. It should be smaller at the equator and obviously larger as we go further north. Again, we see a local sun with a localized reflection. Ask yourself this question as you watch these very quick time lapses. Is the Earth moving or the sun? Because people say, if the sun's moving, it should get a lot smaller on the horizon. It should be a lot smaller on the horizon, it should grow. But if you've got an unobstructed view, that's exactly what you see. And now don't get me wrong, I've seen the sun huge on the horizon as well. Is the Earth moving or the sun? You know, is the Earth rotating towards and rotating away from the sun? Or is the Earth completely still and it's the sun moving about over it, bringing light and heat every day? Even from an airplane. 7 miles up. Sun's disappearing into the distance. And say, well, okay. Yeah, NASA are liars. Yeah, they can fool us with a telescope, but you can't fool science, can you? There's a scientific proofs, isn't there? One of the most famous ones is Eratosthenes, who famously proved the Earth was round. No, he didn't. He was measuring the circumference of the Earth. He'd already assumed that the Earth was a ball in the first place. And the thing is, you know, it's the difference in the length of the shadows at two different points on Earth, 700 miles apart. He chose to accept this explanation. Sunlight's coming in parallel, hence cause those different shadows. The other explanation is just as valid. So small sun create exactly the same difference in shadows. There's no proof at all. In fact, you'll find most of these proofs, most of the scientific proofs, all assume previously that the Earth is a ball, or it is spinning, etc., etc. So they have to start with that assumption and then they can prove it. But without starting with that assumption, you can't. The distance, not only is the distance to the sun been changed, you know, again, we go to school and they say the sun's 93 million miles away. Everybody knows that figure, but that has changed ridiculously since Copernicus first came up with his convoluted theory. Not only that, they also used to think that the sun was still. That the sun was fixed in the centre and, you know, everything's revolving around it, but Herschel then said, no, the sun's moving as well. And then we know nowadays we've got that Nassim Haramein graphic with the sun, I think I've got it somewhere, the sun leading the solar system away through the galaxy. So it's not fixed, it's not like this science is settled or anything, it changes all the time. And here's an important question, so I'm going to take this down now, it's getting on me. That's enough programming. Shooting stars. Again, sorry, just at the point I need it. Right, here you are on Earth. Where we are, here we are in Britain, and we see shooting stars. We see them come down. I mean, they can come from the horizon, and possibly across to the other horizon. Yeah, but most of them kind of shoot across down. What they never do is shoot up from the horizon straight up. But if you're on a ball rotating, yeah, here in Britain, you should see them come up from everywhere. Come from out, you know, all around you is outer space. So why not shooting stars everywhere? Why don't they ever come up from the horizon and just go off into the... They don't. They all come down. Every shooting star, every meteorite and asteroid, they all come down. Here's something you can do for yourself. I think the moon's probably at about the right phase now as well, so you could do it tonight or in the next few days. Whenever there's a sliver of a moon, up to about a half, it doesn't quite face the sun. I mean, this is a photograph. Here's the sun in the sky. Here's the moon. Now you know, in your mind, move those two bodies around so that the moon reflects properly from the sun. You play pool, you've got to line up shots, or snooker, you've got to line up shots and they've got to be accurate. You can quite clearly see here that this moon is pointing to a sun that way. You'd have to move them, you'd have to bring the sun right down and move the moon up to get that kind of reflection. But you can see this for yourself. Go, you know, notice the moon over the next few days and weeks for yourself and check the angle and check it's correct. Sometimes it's quite close, but sometimes it's like 10 or 20 degrees wrong. I mean, this is, I don't know, what would you say, almost 40 degrees, 30 or 40 degrees wrong there. Another big proof that's always ruled out is the Foucault pendulum. This is a great big, they have them in museums and universities around the world. Great big pendulum, you know, hung from the ceiling, and it swings back and forth, and slowly over the day, it will swing round throughout the plane over 24 hours because of the Earth's apparently rotating. There's two problems with that. Number one, all pendulums in the world would do the same thing. Yeah, everything swinging freely would rotate because of the rotation of the Earth. The other problem with it, again, when you go investigate, they actually admit themselves, without kind of admitting it, that it's not just a free-flowing pendulum that's moving with the rotating Earth. The one at Monash University, I'll just read this summary very quickly. It says, a Foucault pendulum is described which has a novel drive, so it's driven, and a new device preventing it from ellipsing. So they normally ellipse. Foucault pendulum is not a proof at all, and by their own admission, this is, you know, NASA astrophysics data system. New Foucault pendulum, but we have to drive it and damp it, rollers and Charon rings, electronic supports, and everything else. Not only can we not see curvature, there is no motion. We don't feel motion. Now, whether you believe or not the Earth is moving, you must admit that your senses are, you know, the semicircular canals in our inner ear, you know, our senses tell us that we're fixed, that we're stationary. I know it's supposed to be an optical illusion and everything, but if there is no movement of the Earth, then the whole model is gone. The whole model is wrong. Now they say, well, we can't feel it because it's got a constant velocity and a constant direction. Well, number one, it's not, because it's going round in an ellipse around the sun, apparently. So it changes direction all the time. The other thing is, it's not a smooth ball. There's an 18-kilometre variation between the highest mountains and the deepest valleys. Now, that should cause some kind of change of velocity, even if it's slight. It should feel it. Make the analogy that, you know, if you're on a moving car or a moving train or on a plane, you don't feel the motion until it slows down, speeds up, changes direction. And that's fair enough, although the Earth is not enclosed, so it's not a great analogy. But again, it's not a smooth ball, so if we're spinning around, at some point the air, you know, the resistance should hit these mountains and should slow it down and whack it up. But there's bigger than that. There's quadrillions of tons of water all over this supposed globe. Oceans and oceans. So as it's turning, you know, if you've got a tray of water, all you have to do is move it a little bit, and what does the water do? Inertia's off, creates a wave, doesn't it? And this is, the Earth's supposed to be travelling out the equator at 1,038 miles an hour, rotating at 1,038 miles an hour on its axis. How is that not sloshing the water around? Like we know in real life, with our own experience, but we only observe. You say the moon causes the tides, but you know, I don't know what gravity, you know, obviously I suppose sixth of, gravity is supposed to be a sixth of the, you know, a sixth strength on the moon. But you're telling me from 240,000 miles away, that affects the tide, but the spinning of the Earth doesn't. The other thing is the Continental Drift. Again, it's the other way around. This is what they show you was once Pangea. Yeah, all the continents, all the land was at the equator, and over time, it's separated apart. This is what they teach us in science, teach us in school. But again, if that was the case, if we were rotating around, that's why you need a globe to debunk the globe. If it's rotating around, and this is where all the centrifugal force is, all the land masses should have drifted towards the equator by now, especially if it's been around for 4 billion years. Things weigh exactly the same at the equator as they do in Britain or the North Pole, and again, that shouldn't be the case. Weight should be different everywhere, because these are experiencing 1,038 miles an hour rotation. These are experiencing none. We're about 700 miles up here, allegedly. Airplanes would have a great big problem flying, you know, whichever direction. But if they're going from, you know, say north to south, then again, the rotation is increased. So it should have to take account for that. How do they ever land unless the runways are exactly east-west and they're coming in east-west? How do they ever land? Well, they say all the atmosphere is spinning along with the Earth. That's why we can't feel it. That's how, you know, planes can still fly and everything else. But they want us to believe that the atmosphere is basically acts like one big solid directly attached to the Earth. That's the only way that you wouldn't feel it. But the atmosphere is gas, it's air. Yeah? You say because of friction, that's what gets the air going. And okay, it's going to create a little bit of friction, but it's not going to you can't get a solid just by friction to get a gas to rotate along with it. Again, get a tennis ball, football, any kind of, you know, throw it. The air doesn't stick to it, it cuts through the air. The exosphere is supposed to be 6,200 miles above the Earth. So it's another, the radius 3955, so it's about out here until you get officially into space according to NASA. So we've got all this air all rolling around with it. And not only that, the higher you go, the faster it must be spinning, obviously. Because if you're on the outside, it's got to cover the same distance. Oh, sorry, it's got to cover a greater distance in the same time. So it must be going faster. So not only are we supposed to believe that the friction, you know, the friction is getting the air going at exactly the same speed at the surface, but that air is then getting the friction of the higher air to go even faster and even faster. Again, this is nonsense. If you actually break it down, this is nonsense. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, you know, scientifically. There are no experiments that prove the motion of the Earth. In fact, quite the opposite. If you look up Michelson, Morley, Stagnac's turntables and Airy's failure, three of the most famous experiments in the 19th century, and they all basically prove that we're completely and utterly motionless. That's why they had to bring Einstein out in 1905. They call the theories of relativity, special and general relativity. Now, not only is the Earth orbiting on its, rotating on its axis, but it's also orbiting around the Sun. How does that not affect the atmosphere and the spin? And then the whole Sun's going through the galaxy at 500,000 miles an hour, yet we can't feel a single thing. That's not true, is it? It's magic. There are no experiments. When there's an earthquake, and we're lucky in Britain, we don't have very many, but when we do, it's like, yeah, there's some big ones in New Zealand recently. That's what the Earth would be like if it was moving. It'd be carnage. The other great big clue that we're not on a spinning ball is the way water acts, the way rivers act. Rivers flow downhill, north, south, east, west, they flow downhill. But again, the Nile's 4,000 miles long, and it flows that way, it flows north. Yeah. It's impossible. Every river in the world flows from, obviously, its source, generally up a mountain, out to the sea. Oh, gravity. Well, if gravity's working, then why does it flow at all? Why doesn't it stick it to the bed? It's not what we experience. All water finds flat. You get a tray of water and leave it be, flat. Swimming pool, nobody in it, nice clean pool, flat. Lake, the sea, the ocean, flat. Water always finds flat. The bottom of it will take the shape of the container, but the surface is flat. So at what point does water start curving into a ball? You get tiny molecules, tiny raindrops of the ball, but as soon as you put a few of those raindrops together, it forms a puddle. But they want us to believe that, you know, two-thirds of the earth is water. That I do believe, for the moment. We've got this great big ocean here, but it's not flat. It does what water doesn't do, what we've seen. We observe water finding flat, but they want us to believe that water curves around the ball. The US Navy have probably have several, but they have a weapon, a laser-guided missile. And the tech that actually work on it, that actually fire it and use it, they say, the point that they shine the laser at the target, and there's no other way for the missile to get there. As long as that laser's on the target, the missile will follow and hit that target. But they go for 50 miles. So how does it see through the curve? Does the missile punch through the water? Again, these wouldn't work. Neither would the, I can't remember the name of the gun, but it fires 100 miles. Again, how's that going to hit its target? So, well, hang on a minute, what about the tech we've got? And we've got a cell phone, we've got Sky TV, all this other stuff. How do they work if we haven't got satellites in space? Well, quite easily, with antennas, towers, ground-based towers. Some of it, you know, is reflected off the atmosphere, some of it's tower to tower, some of it's cable. But this system's been around since World War II. And they always say that public tech's about 50 years behind what they've actually got. So again, they had this system, and you can see it's covering Britain, covering, you know, the coast, the eastern coast of the United States, much of Europe. World War II, 1940s, cell phones were released about 1990s, weren't they? So 50 years after the fact. How does my Sky dish work? How am I getting satellites? Getting it from tropospheric scattering. I'll read you this. One useful form of radio communications technology for applications where path lengths of around 800 kilometres, that's not the limit. You can go well over 1,000 kilometres if they wanted to. Are needed is known as tropospheric scattering, or thankfully shorter, troposcatter. It's a reliable form of radio communications that can be used regardless of the prevailing tropospheric conditions. That's why, you know, your TV picture doesn't wave, you know, go fuzzy very much. Although reliable, when using troposcatter, the signal strengths are normally very low, so they require a very high power transmitter and a very finely tuned receiver. And this is what a great big receiver looks like. Shape ring the bell? It's kind of pointed out level, it's got that kind of dish. That's tropospheric scattering. It costs millions and millions and millions to lay cable under the sea. So why do it if we can just send satellites up and it can bounce the signals around the Earth? Very, very expensive stuff, and this is, you know, they're everywhere, connecting all the continents. All these great big antennas, Winter Hill, why do we still need that? Why are Google using drones? Now, satellites actually do exist, but they're not up there in space, unless you can find me a photo or a video of a real one. They do put satellites up there, and they've been doing it since 1960. This is the Echo 2. And they can go for a long time. I think the record's 250 days. It can be launched from locations worldwide for science. It can be ready for flight in 6 months. Low-cost method, stable platform. They don't try and hide it. They've got a suborbital program. Why have NASA got a suborbital program if they've got an orbital program? Why? Let's go to space. Well, this I can believe completely. Sounding rockets and UGLBs launched from several different places all over the world. They don't try and hide it. This particular one here looks very much like the Kepler telescope to me. Not saying it is, I haven't got proof of it. But they're launching satellites mainly a lot from the Antarctica, but some from Sweden, various places. They all like satellites to me, and they go on great big long balloons. Have I got the? No, I haven't. Yeah, the record's 250 days, that one's up there. And they can keep launching them. Very recently, NASA came out with the fact that they found 7 exoplanets. This is how they find them with this Kepler telescope, which is whatever, 20 miles above us. A star dims its light for a little bit. It twinkles, in other words. And this is how we measure. This is how we measure, what planets are going around, what distant stars. That's what they tell us. It's only been in service since 2011. It's found something like 4,000 exoplanets. Well, the Earth takes 1 year to go around the Sun. So if we're watching the Earth from the distance, we'd probably want a couple of years, 2-3 years, to make sure it's definitely a planet and not a speck of dust or something else. You know what I mean? If it's a planet, it's got to have a regular orbit. But they found all these planets very, very quickly. Oh, there we go. 4,696, and that's Jan 2015. So it's probably up in towards 10,000. I'll show you this video very quickly. What are we up to? We're nearly finished. We're running out of time. Damn. Okay. I'm not going to show you the video because I want to get through a couple more things. This is stills from the video. We've now got cameras like the Nikon P900, and we can actually zoom in on the stars. Now they're distorted. We can't see exactly what's going on. There are all kinds of aberrations and what have you, but they don't look like a solid yellow disc. They're all different. They're all unique. A lot of them are multicoloured. They dance all over the place. And the other thing is, if we can see such detail, and it's not massively, but we can see, what form they are, then they can't be that far away either. They can't be trillions of light years away. Stellar parallax is a big fraud, and I'll show you why. Look at your thumb. That's about 1 inch. Yeah, the thumb's about 1 inch. What they're looking for is measurements of movement of a 15,000th of an inch over a 6-month period. Yeah, point a telescope at a particular star, we're supposed to be one side of the sun, and the other side of the sun, they're trying to triangulate a massive distance. Just look at the tiny, tiny differences. 1/15,000th of an inch. When angles are as small as this, we incline to agree with Tycho. He said angles of parallax exist only in the minds of the observers. Now, most of distance astronomy, most of this idea of vast outer space comes from the idea of stellar parallax, which you can't see. Obviously, the constellations stay the same every year, year in, year out. Yeah, the skies don't actually change, but they're saying the slight movements, so they are slightly moving apart. Two things could be easily caused by an earthquake. We have earthquakes all over the world, all the time. Or refraction of light. I mean, you're taking one measurement one day, and then 6 months later you're taking another measurement. Yeah, and the differences are absolutely tiny. To actually say this is solid science is really pushing the boat out. Even astronomers themselves, even scientists themselves say, it's Robert Woodhouse, the whole range of astronomy does not contain one proof of its own accuracy. Fred Hoyle the same, Astronomer Royal. Can't say that Copernican theory is right and the Ptolemaic theory is wrong. So science isn't settled either. There's a lot of quotes from UFO experts who also say, even Arthur C. Clarke, one theory which can no longer be taken very seriously is that UFOs are interstellar spaceships. Nobody denies that UFOs exist, and we've seen them. You've seen them with your own eyes, seen thousands of videos. We know abductions are real, implants are real. These things are really happening. But I don't think they're from outer space. You can test it for yourself, but many, many researchers themselves say they don't think from outer space. I'm going to leave it there because it's 3 o'clock. I could easily do this talk for 4 or 5 hours. Either I've encouraged you or motivated you to go and research some of this stuff for yourself, or you just think I'm a complete nutter, so we're back at the start again. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great conference.